What exactly do you picture when you hear the word barbarian? Probably a savage warrior, someone with a horned helmet and a giant axe, screaming as they charge towards civilization, right? It's a powerful image, one that we've seen in movies and games for decades. But what if I told you that this image is one of the most successful smear campaigns in all of history? That the real story of the people the Romans called barbarians isn't one of mindless destruction, but a complex story of migration, adaptation, and ultimately the creation of the world we live in today. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unravel who the barbarians really were, what led to their famous clashes with Rome, and what actually happened to them in the end. And I'll give you some fantastic resources, books, and shows to check out if you want to dive deeper. So, first, let's tackle the name barbarian. It comes from the ancient Greeks, and for them, a barbaros was simply anyone who didn't speak Greek. To their ears, foreign languages just sounded like bar. It wasn't originally about being savage, it was just about being a foreigner. The Romans adopted the term and used it as a catch all for the huge variety of people living outside their borders. We're talking about hundreds of distinct groups: the Goths, Vandals, Franks, Saxons, and the terrifying Huns, to name just a few. Lumping them all together as barbarian was a convenient way for Rome to define who was civilized and who was not. If you want a brilliant, dramatic look at one of the first major clashes from the other side, you have to watch the Netflix series Barbarians. It covers the famous Battle of Teutoburg Forest where Germanic tribes annihilated three Roman legions. It does great job of showing that these were organized societies with their own cultures, politics and motivations, not just a random horde. For centuries, for centuries, the relationships between Rome and these groups wasn't just war. It was complicated mix of trade, treaties, and even recruitment. Many barbarians served in the Roman army and rose to high ranks. They were a part of Roman world long before they were credited with ending it. But by the 4th and 5th centuries AD, things began to change. Climate change and pressure from groups further east like the Huns pushed people like Goths to seek refuge and land within the Roman Empire. This is where the story gets intense. The Romans often exploited these refugees, leading to rebellion. This culminates in one of history's great turning points: the sack of Rome in 410 AD by Alaric and his Visigoths. It wasn't about destroying the city for fun. Alaric was a former Roman military commander who felt his people had been betrayed. He was trying to negotiate a home for them. The sack was a catastrophic failure of Roman politics. Then, of course, there was Attila the Hun. He built an empire that stretched across Central and Eastern Europe and struck fear into the hearts of everyone. He was so formidable that the Romans and the Visigoths, the oldest enemies, actually had to team up to stop his advance. If you want a truly masterful deep dive into this entire period, the book you have to read is The Fall of Roman Empire: A History of Rome and the Barbarians by Peter Heather. He argues brilliantly that it wasn't a simple case of Roman getting weak and barbarians knocking it over. Instead, he shows how the barbarians, empowered by decades of interaction with Rome, became sophisticated enough to challenge the empire and ultimately crave out their own kingdoms from its territory. It's a game changer of a book. So, what was the end of the barbarians? This is the most interesting part. They didn't just vanish. Their demise was actually a transformation. Think about it: as the Western Roman Empire crumbled, these groups didn't just burn everything to the ground and leave. They took over. The Franks, under leaders like Clovis, settled in Roman Gaul and created the kingdom. that eventually became France. The Visigoths ruled Spain for centuries. The Angles and Saxons migrated to Britain and laid the groundwork for England. They stopped being barbarians and became the new establishment. They adopted the Roman law, administration, and eventually Christianity. They blended their own culture with the remnants of the Roman world to create the foundation of medieval Europe. In a very real sense, the barbarians never ended. They just became us. So, the barbarian was never just a mindless destroyer. That was a Roman narrative, a ghost that still haunts our history books. They were migrants, mercenaries, nation builders, and the ancestors of modern Europe. So if you want to continue this journey, I highly recommend the documentary series Terry Jones' Barbarians. The late Terry Jones of Monty Python fame was also a passionate historian, and his series does a fantastic job of celebrating the art, skill, and rich culture of these so-called savages. So what do you think? Please write in the comment below. I'd love to read that all. And if you liked the video, please subscribe the channel and hit the like button. Thank you.